What is up, friend and fellow anti-editor? It is I, Scott Scheper here, the analog knowledge revolutionary. Pardon me, I'm a little sick, so hopefully my voice doesn't crack when I am talking you through today's video. And so I want to flip my camera around. I want to show you what we're going to talk about today essentially entails one thing: mistakes. So I'm going to show you my anti-net right now. And one of the things that you will know if you've watched any of my previous videos is there are three kind of main sections of the anti-net Zettelkasten, aka an analog Zettelkasten that ascribes to the Niklas Luhmann conventions and notions. All right, so the first part is the index. You can see that I've moved my index, by the way, just into my main anti-net instead of it being a separate box. So the index is right here. There is, of course, the main sections of the anti-net, and those are like the green ones, these green little labels, and those are broken out by the numeric branches that I outlined of the academic disciplines. And then there is, of course, the bibliography box, and that just says bib. I call it a bib box, and the bibliography box includes and contains your reading notes. And so I want to show you something. People have asked me before, and this is one of the things I think that holds a lot of people back from getting started with their own analog Zettelkasten, and that is the concept of perfectionism. People are scared of making mistakes. They want to have every single thing figured out. Now, here's the deal. If you have followed my Getting Started Guide to the Anti-Net, then you have more than enough. That is what you need to get started, okay? That is essentially the wisdom that I learned from that, and that you'll find in that guide, is something that took me like a year and a half of false starts and learning on figuring this thing out. Now, mistakes will happen and they are inevitable. And I want to show you some of mine. Really, the main one is, I think right here, is something that you'll find interesting. Now, when I read How to Take Smart Notes by Zettelkasten Arens, he, provided a nice little overview of how a Zettelkasten works, but he really leaves out a lot of the details and a lot of the explicit steps. And I had to learn the hard way how things really worked. I had to reverse engineer Luhmann's actual online archive and write out Luhmann's notes by hand to see how it really worked. Now, one of the issues that with Zettelkasten Arens' book is that he explains a very broad overview step of the concept of what he calls literature notes, and it's maybe a sentence or two. And so I thought I understood the concept of literature notes when I read How to Take Smart Notes, but what I realized later on was that I really didn't. And so early on into learning about the analog Zettelkasten, I started to take literature notes, and I would put them in, you can see this is like a main box. I would put them in the main box of my analog Zettelkasten. So for instance, here is reading notes for this course I took called the 10-Minute Workday. And it's about how to essentially become a copywriter that writes emails every single day. And that's kind of like the extent of your work. And then you create, products that you provide to your readers and your audience. On top of that, for instance, I was really into the idea of creating like a monthly physical newsletter, and that's what this guy does. So as you can see in the top right corner, I have an address. This is a numeric alpha card address. It's 5299/268/1. Now, what you'll see over here, these are considered essentially, I call them bibliography notes or bib notes. These are brief observations. So this is the 10-Minute Workday course, section 6.2, right? And so I didn't really understand that actually Niklas Luhmann, he did not do this. Like I put these in my, essentially my marketing and copywriting section. And later on, I realized that Luhmann took these type of notes, horizontally, or not horizontally, but vertically, as you can see, but he did not file them in the main part of his analog Zettelkasten. Instead, he filed them by author last name in the bibliography box. And you can see my bibliography box is, it's kind of not as big as you would think right now, because early on in my like first, I don't know, 3 or 4 months of building out an analog Zettelkasten, I would file them, my bibliography notes, in the actual main box, in certain sections. Now, the cool thing is that this really doesn't matter, and it doesn't affect or impact things long term. What you'll discover in a analog Zettelkasten is the idea of evolving around your mistakes, and actually they form kind of a unique character and a unique piece of your analog Zettelkasten. And so it hasn't affected my output. But anyway, here is my latest instantiation and the updated version. Here's a bibliography card, and here's my notes. You can see how much better and more concise my bib notes are getting. And remember, you don't want to get bogged down when you're reading. You want to create these are page numbers over here, right? 35, 37, right? And this is a marketing card about value needs to be greater than the price, all that stuff. But you can see how concise these notes are, and it's almost like a skill. When you develop the muscle that Lumen essentially developed in this whole process, your brain works differently, you read differently, you can grasp ideas more concisely and put them onto cards in a more concise way. Now, of course, the next, so that's one of them. That's a pretty big mistake. I would file my bib notes, my bib cards, my literature notes, essentially is what Sankey Arons would call them, in the wrong place. And I had to learn the hard way of how to actually do it and why it makes sense to organize it by author last name and put it in the bib box. So anyway, that's just a quick video I wanted to make for you today. It's all about mistakes, and don't let mistakes hold you back from actually starting and building out your analog Zettelkasten. My analog Zettelkasten, aka my Antinet, is completely filled with mistakes, but you learned that they are an absolute fantastic tool, because as I'm going through, different notes, I see hey, I remember how I used to do this stuff. Wow, I can't believe how much I've grown since starting this thing. And you also realize what, this stuff doesn't matter. The bib notes being stored in a certain place doesn't necessarily, it's not the biggest deal. It's not make or break. What is the most important part, and this is my, drawer, which makes up my, the core component in the piece of my book, is the actual knowledge development, analog knowledge development. And that is actually writing and creating your main notes. Your notes, these are called main cards, right? Your main notes, which I outline in my other videos. These are essentially notes that are either, there's really 3 types of notes, and this is something Sankey Arons misses. Either they're excerpts, there's, actual quotes from the book you read, or they are reformulations, you're essentially reformulating and re-summarizing what the author says, and then you're kind of reformulating with your own stuff. And then there's reflections. Reflections are really writing as if it's a paragraph in your book. And this is the main stuff that actually matters most. So anyway, the good part about it is the analog doesn't let you, fall into the trap of perfectionism. You can't major in the minor. You can't spend your days, and nights and restructuring and refactoring your, bubble graph digital note-taking app, and restructuring how you do meta tags and nested bullet points. All of that stuff doesn't matter. This really focuses you, in the analog Zettelkasten, and the format of it focuses you on what truly matters. Again, that is the knowledge development right here. Anyway, hope this quick video helped you out, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, please subscribe, share with your friends, and continue to stay crispy, my friends. Scott Scheper on a Monday at 5:19 post meridian, signing off. My friends, have a good one. The analog knowledge revolution is continuing to grow. Peace and love. Bye-bye now.